Hi guys, so welcome to the new DraftBuff podcast. We'll be calling this DraftDiff, and we want to break down everything to do with League of Legends that may have happened, whether that be the latest news, the latest free agencies, anything wacky and weird. It'll all be in here. If it happens on the Rift, it's happening here. So I guess today is Justin, who is an expert in stats and free agency. He joins us all the way from America. Thank you for coming on, Justin. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm Kepri. You can call me Max. Joining us from Korea, we have Benjamin, also known as Gui. And straight from Spain into your eardrums, it's Jorge. Okay, so let's get stuck right in. So a couple of weeks ago, Worlds rounded up. Fantastic tournament. I really enjoyed it. Damwon ended up securing the title. But we actually had quite a good final as well. I was really glad that we actually had a bit of a contest to watch rather than it just being another 3-0 stomp. And, you know, it was surprising for some, you know, if you haven't watched the LCK, you know, after seeing Damwon at Worlds last year fall out in the quarterfinals, you were thinking, okay, this will be a good team, but not world beating, possibly. They were eliminated from quarters last year by G2, and there weren't that many changes. They only brought in Ghost to replace Nuclear, and they've completely dominated the whole tournament. So, Gui, can you break down what exactly you thought was the main catalyst behind Damwon being able to do so well?
Yeah, Damwon, you know, like being in Korea here, I followed Damwon very closely. And compared to last year Worlds where they lost to G2, actually a very close 3-1 back then. But we can see a much more mature team compared to last year. I think the guys really know, like after playing out in the second full year, you know, players like we can see, especially in Canyon and Showmaker, completely dominating the jungle middle synergy. And not only that, like the experience factor, you know, like counting now, but the meta suit like Canyon, Showmaker perfectly. Playing aggressive champions, like we can see the Nidalee on the meta, like we can see the Lee Sin as well for him, and you know, pretty much everything for Showmaker in the middle lane was perfect for him. And we could see a team like, you know, kind of changing the traditional Korean approach to the game, like playing like control vision games, going for the like, you know, like let's say we call it Chinese aggression style. And that's something, you know, like they create their own style by doing so, like mixing the traditional Korean approach to the game, like still playing around the objectives very well, like controlling the vision, controlling the map, but also knowing like when to find a good fight for them, instead of just try to stall out the game and win by, you know, purely by a superior macro. So it's a team that combines like these two, let's say, schools of League of Legends and a very mature roster, like, you know, compared to last year. And let them, of course, they enter Worlds as one of the favorites, but you know, didn't expect them to actually dominate so much. Like they dropped only 3 games throughout the entire tournament. One to DGG, one to G2, one to Sunny in the finals. The finals, of course, like Sunny put a like an exceptional fight. I honestly, you know, when I arrived at the finals, I thought it would be another 3-0 in the finals, like would be the 4th in a row after, you know, the 3 last years. But Sunny played exceptionally well, so excited for that guys as well. But I think, you know, for Damwon right now, the biggest question is, okay, like just today it was announced that Koma is joining as the head coach for Damwon. Okay, how that's gonna shape up, you know. I think, you know, I'm very fascinated to think, like I think, you know, Koma brings, you know, 3 worst titles, like even lost count how many LCK he won and everything else. It's gonna be fascinating seeing like such an experienced coach, you know, bringing his whole, like, you know, years of expertise to it's still a very young roster. If you see, like, you know, like the oldest player, I think, like Nuguri, like is 21, 20. I think 20 he is. So it's still incredibly young team. You know, I think they didn't even reach their peak. So honestly, I think next year in Korea, despite still one booting like fight with Zephyr now, you know, joining as a head coach, I think Damwon had everything, you know, to dominate the year and probably try to arrive towards to try to defend their title. So pretty curious to see how this is gonna shape up, but I think it's gonna end up working very well for them.
Absolutely. Jorge and Justin, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Should we start off with you, Jorge?
Well, I definitely agree with everything you say. I also want to highlight when watching Damwon playing is the coordination and the discipline when they were playing. They always play like one. Like you and especially with meta, you see during Worlds some teams having problems to adapt, to the meta. So you can see, some miscommunication, some, maybe nervous because teams were playing, online almost all this year, and they're, playing on stage maybe can be challenging. You are also playing Worlds, everything, but that one never lose their focus. Probably one or two miscommunications in, individual games or something, but overall the team looks very cohesive, very committed to helping each other, and I think that was the key for their victory.
Absolutely. And Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with like the original point, how they had their own like new style. It was like an adaptation of like LPL aggression and like coin flip fights and just flex their skills, especially with playmakers and guys like Canyon Showmaker, especially. And then they also had the macro decisions like any LCK team is honed on. Yeah, and it's funny that the Damwon coaches left for T1. It's almost like they're swapping coaches because, like you said, Koma has been like such a long time T1 coach. But I actually think the switch is perfect for them because we know how much he can set up a dynasty for an LCK team, which is what SKT1 was for like 5 or 6 years when he was there. And when you have most of these players in their prime at like the young 19, 20, 21 range, it's probably the perfect coach you want in. Obviously, the LPL didn't work out for him when he was with VG, but I think he enjoys much more the LCK meta. And now that he has players that can play like an LPL team, they should just continue to dominate this league.
Absolutely. I think it's hard to see Damwon falling off anytime soon unless somehow they lose all their talent, the meta goes against them, and probably their computers catch on fire as well. Even then, I'm sure they'd manage to beat
very important. He got the wife buff as well now. Like
absolutely,
and not only wife, he got a kid. I think like a daughter was born like a couple of weeks ago. So he has a whole family buff now to carry down one.
The man's unstoppable. But yeah, of course, as much as we could wax lyrical about Damwon this whole episode, essentially, we need to give some praise to Suning as well. They came into the tournament after what was at best an okay season in the LPL. They weren't exactly setting the world alight, but they came in and really made a name for themselves. Some of these very rookie players who hadn't had Worlds experience before, and it was really impressive to watch. And I just wondered, like, what do you guys think? Do you think we'll see more of Suning going into the future, or will perhaps another LPL team be stepping up to take Suning's place at the next World Championships? Shall we start with Justin?
Sure. I don't know if we'll see them return to how high they got this year. With me invested so much in LPL, like you said, they were like at best a mediocre team. I think they got fortunate actually to make it to Worlds because they got matched up with LGD twice in the playoffs to actually qualify in the first place. But when they got there, they grabbed the flag and they ran with it. Players like Bin and SOFM were like showing how dominant they were at the positions. And I think it also had to do with TES kind of underperforming. Because if TES beat them in the semifinals, the Suning light probably would have been a little darker because everyone expected Damwon and TES to make it there and be like the two best from each of the major regions. But no, I enjoyed them getting there. The stories that were behind them, Juan Fang's sad childhood, Sword Art finally making a run in the knockout stage with all the years wasted on Flash Wolves, and a whole bunch of guys that were been stuck in almost like their LDL teams. The Suning stories and like fan narratives were actually just perfect for League of Legends as a whole.
Absolutely. Jorge, Would you guys agree with that? Do you see a route back to Worlds for Suning to make another deep Worlds run, or do we think this will be the last we'll hear from them for a while?
Yeah, I can take it. Like, who knows? It's LPL after all. Like, it's the most erratic, unpredictable region of them all. Like, even so, like, we have teams like FPX or IG not making towards. It's a super stacked region where, you need to have the meta in your favor. You need to have the momentum, the form, like in the decisive moments to, clinch the spot awards. I think as Justin said, Sunny was fortunate to even like catch words in first place. And when once they got there, they just, got the momentum going and, and made the run until the very end. So, who knows? I think individually, they have a lot of bright spots. I think Wangfang, is a player that, honestly, I didn't expect that much from him. Like, despite his very like touching personal story, like a person, like it's fascinating how everything he overcame. His life was impressive, but as a player, he shows such a maturity for someone who never played even like a offline match. This season, like Sunny didn't play any offline series this year, right? Before Worlds,
I don't think so. No, I think they were one of the first leagues, at least, to go online only.
Exactly.
So yeah,
and it's a very young team as well. Like, of course, like like Angel, like Huanfeng, and Bing. Like, I think they barely played any offline like tournament in their lives. Like before coming towards, and in the finals, like had like 7,000-8,000 fans playing. Like for the first time in their lives in front of such big audience. And they put a hell of a fight. And they made a final worth watching. So I'm excited. I'm gonna of course keep track of this guy. I think a lot of Western fans are gonna keep track of them for next year. I think the LPL should expect a higher viewership because of Sunny. But if they can reach more, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. The LPL is crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing we need to highlight is that it's LPL. Maybe next year we are talking about a different rookies. Players that we don't know yet, but they will crush everyone. Next year they will be the best team in the world, and we will be talking about them like, oh, these guys. It's, as Guy say, LPL is unpredictable, but yeah, I do think the both of you guys have been discussing about the narrative and the storylines behind these players, and I think that's one of the biggest success history for this year, and specifically for Worlds, is that the Western regions, we are used to be rooting for G2 and like Western teams, and mostly LPL are like the nemesis, and the like you can see in them as the bad guys, like not the bad guys, but the teams we need to beat. But with these Sony storylines, I feel like people will feel this attachment or this emotional connection to these players and to this region, and I think that's very awesome. I think that will be it's helpful for League of Legends as a community and the esports scene overall.
Absolutely, and of course, when we talk about Worlds, TSM's run wasn't great, but they look to be, well, I think that's a bit of an understatement, really.
Wasn't great.
Yeah.
06?
Yeah, it was not the greatest performance from them, I have to say.
Could be a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
maybe at least one game.
Yeah, as always next year.
I doubt it.
But yeah, we'll see. Next year, Bjergsen will be stepping aside from playing as a professional, and he'll be pursuing being the head coach for TSM now. And this was massive news when it broke, absolutely gigantic. Because arguably Bjergsen is still a player that can very much hold his own. He's still easily one of the best players in that region. So for him to retire was a big surprise. And, there's a lot of questions around how's the team going to look? Is he going to blow this roster up? Is he going to just patch over some of the holes? Where will the current iteration of TSM end up? Jorge, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, definitely not the best year of
Yeah.
TSM. And touching a little bit of Worlds, they were placed in a group that wasn't that hard. Like they didn't play against the favorites. They didn't play against G2. They didn't play against TES or Damwon. They played with Genji, LGD, and I mean, Fnatic was strong, but wasn't at its best form, and not even a single game was very demoralizing for NA as a region. Not only TSM. Like I think that's was crucial and a breaking point for them. And regarding to BRSM, honestly, my personal opinion, I would love to see BRSM probably coaching the academy team 1 year. I think that, like to get a little bit of more, experience. But I mean, I think that we need to wait and see how it works, because they already, like, his tweets about, coaching, he was most like, oh, as a player you already takes decisions about coaching, and we know that everyone know that he and Double Leaf usually make some of the decisions of the pick and banks, of the strategy of the thing. So I think they will they will try to mix this. I don't know how it's going to work or if it's going to work, but I do think that if they grab, let's say, some young talent that for in terms of inspiring, new talents, like Bjersen is a legend in NA, so everyone will respect and follow his lead. So that's probably that might be a good thing. I have my doubts and concerns about coaching experience and the difference between like coaching is not it's a profession and you need to be good at it. It's not enough to be a good player. Like some of the good players can be good coaches, and we see this not only on League of Legends. We see this in all sports and other games. So we need to wait and see. But hopefully, I wish the best. I think NA as a region should, it would be more interesting for the game, for Worlds and for the international competition, if we have stronger regions and make Worlds more interesting. Because I mean, besides the memes and everything, yeah, it's fun, but it's not, for the sake of competition, it's not good having a strong region with three seats on Worlds doing so bad.
Absolutely. There's a lot of talk about Power of Evil is pretty much confirmed to be the new starting mid laner for TSM, which is massive news. As an EU fan, I really rate Power of Evil. I think he's a really good player. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about Licorice as well, possibly joining. Justin, are you able to enlighten us a bit more on this, on the potential TSM moves?
Yeah, of course. For me, I think this is probably going to be, based on the news that I have, it's probably going to be the best roster TSM's had. So I'm a TSM fan. Probably the best roster we're going to have since the World's 2016 team. It doesn't mean much with juggernauts like TL and now C9 are going to be in NA. But it's presumed that Licorice, for like a absurd buyout of like 750K, will be going to TSM. To go along with Spica, like you said, PoE in the mid lane. Doublelift is presumed the starter right now. And they're looking to import support. Most likely a Korean. There's a whole bunch of names out there that are circulating. There's LCK guys, like fan hopefuls for Korea or Life, Tucson, guys like that. But the most likely scenario is probably Ignar to round out that roster. So that roster on paper is really good. We've seen some of them play well at Worlds. So guys like Licorice, PoE this year proved that he could play on the world stage. So the team on paper is good. But like Jorge said, it's going to come down to, is he ready? Is Bjergsen ready for coaching? how much is going to translate. As a fan, I would have preferred if they brought in someone like a Peter Dunn or Yamada Cannon, who we'll be talking about after. But bringing in someone like that and have Bjergsen mentor someone with their stature would have been probably way more beneficial for TSM, like going down the road, than just throwing him straight into a head coaching role, especially with a fan base so passionate and sometimes a little extreme.
A little?
Yeah. Sorry.
TSM been a little passionate.
Sorry. In NA, it's super extreme. In EU, it kind of looks a little passive. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
They can be very toxic. But I think TSM fans just want to get back to winning ways, and this roster has conditions to be good. But like I said before, there are pillars now in the way of TL and C9. And they're kind of also fortunate because Licorice was actually looking to go to 2 other teams. They were actually outbidded by 2 teams, GGS or GG now, Golden Guardians, and FlyQuest. But because of budget concerns, both those teams had to rescind their offers.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting year coming up for TSM. What do you think we can expect from this roster? Do you agree with the idea that maybe it would have been better to have Bjergsen start off in academy and cut his teeth there before transitioning to the hot seat?
Honestly, I think this year he acted as a head coach already. Parf, in my opinion, he doesn't have a very active voice at coaching. He's not like as he said himself, like a coach in the fully meaning of the words. I think he's more like there, just like as a manager, just to keep things handling. But the whole strategy, the whole coaching itself, it was already done by Bjergsen. I think Bjergsen kind of realized this year that he had a lot to bring and to grow, outside of of being a player himself. I think after playing for 7 years for TSM, he got, of course, tired. He had a very long career since he was extremely young, and he realized, it's time, to finish. He won another LCS title. He at least went towards a final time as a player, but I think he just realized that he already kind of was acting as a coach for the whole league, at least since forgot his name. He left after Spring Split.
So
yeah, you can see I'm not an NA fan here.
What are you talking about? You love it.
Or Zix when he went to 100 Thieves.
Precisely.
That was it.
So sorry. So with Park joined as a caretaker pretty much. I think it was more open to Bjergsen and pretty much lead the team, inside and outside the Rift as well. So Bjergsen had already a huge impact to the team, and they won the LCS. Yeah, whatever happened on World was, as we see, wasn't a good run. But with a roster that isn't paper better than this year's roster, Bjergsen, already with some experience, I actually I disagree with you guys. I think he's ready to coach TSM. And I think he's going to perform well. He's a super, let's say, smart player. He always was known for his, knowledge, intelligence inside the Rift as a player. And he always despite TSM having numerous coaches over the last years, he always had a very, high input, when deciding the team's approach to the game. It worked very well for him and TSM domestically. They won, several LCS titles. It didn't work internationally for the numerous reasons as well. But I think fans, TSM fans, as you said, a little too emotional sometimes. They need to be patient. It might not click right away in the spring split, or I don't know. We're not going to even have a spring split probably. Travis said that they're going to just probably put everything in one. So let's say in the first weeks of the season, it probably can be a little rough. But for TSM, the goal is words. It should always be words for TSM. So I think we're going to arrive August, September with a click team if everything is running as as we think it's going to run. And this team has the potential to get awards and at very least, make to quarters, which of course for an organization used to fail over again at groups would be a massive achievement.
Absolutely. I think it will all come down to how in the coming couple of weeks he can build up this team, get rid of some of the players that he doesn't feel can be part of the team's structure going forward, and who he can get in to replace them. Which brings us on quite well to our next point. Esports Christmas is coming up. Free agency.
Okay, sitting straight because this is exciting.
Yeah, it's always exciting. So, in case you're new to the League of Legends esports scene, or you just need a quick reminder at home, free agency. If you've ever watched like a football transfer deadline day or something, imagine that, but cranked up to 11. Essentially, any player who has not extended their contract with their current team by 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday becomes a free agent. They can move to whatever team wants them for, I believe, no price at all. The vast majority of players, from what I've seen, are going to be free agents. Obviously, a few teams have signed down some core members already, but there are a lot of people entering free agency and a lot of people that are looking to be bought out as well. So from 7 p.m. Eastern Standard on Monday, absolutely expect your Twitter feeds at home to be flooded from Jacob Wolf. God bless him at this time. It's going to be a tiring few days for the man. The majority of deals that are going to happen will be announced in the first couple of days. But of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that a player, if they aren't picked up on free agency day, that doesn't mean that they're going to be teamless. This stuff can go through to, I think, around mid-December when they have to lock their rosters in time for the leagues to start. So it's always interesting to watch. Also going back to the point of, there's going to be a lot of competition at NA this year. Probably the biggest news that we've had in terms of transfers for quite some time, Perks. Where to even begin with this? Jacob Wolf hasn't just dropped a Wolf bomb here. He's dropped a Wolf tactical nuke. So Perks could well be leaving G2 to seek a starting mid lane role. Justin, you know quite a lot about this situation. Can you break this down a little bit for us?
So it was announced by Jacob Wolf originally that there was like 6 teams that were interested in or at least were engaged in talks with G2. Obviously, there was way more than 6 teams that were interested in a player of Perks' stature. But the finalists, if you want to have it that, were C9, EG, and 100 Thieves, and TSM from the NA side. And the EU sides that they were entertaining were Vitality and Misfits. It was pretty much made known right away that C9 was the clear front runner. And then teams slowly got ruled out. Like 100 Thieves were looking to spend money elsewhere, so mid lane didn't really look like the position they were going to pay for. The PoE news to TSM kind of broke. So you're able to eliminate a lot of these finalists off the board pretty quickly, especially with Misfits and Vitality rebuilding. Did you really think that Perks was going to go to teams like that? So honestly, C9 was pretty much the clear and cut. And everyone's going to say, how about Fnatic? It would have been funny for like a reversal of him and Caps. Unfortunately, G2 actually declined to give Fnatic any chance of putting money on the table for him, which is crazy because I think they would have paid the full amount of his buyout, which, according to Jacob Wolf, was shy of $5 million, which is probably the biggest buyout you'll ever hear for a player. But yeah, I think Perks was one of the players that didn't enjoy playing AD carry. He enjoyed it because it gave them a chance to win a world championship. And after they failed twice, it's time to move back home into the mid lane. And why not, like it was mentioned earlier, go get that bank, go get that check, have a nice vacation in NA. before you come back to EU, where Carlos has already made it clear that G2 is a home for him always. And I wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up on the team down the line, playing for fun or streaming under them in the future.
Absolutely. And of course, as we mentioned, Ocelot has said that Perkz is always welcome at G2. You know, they're not screwing each other over with this. Perkz isn't demanding to leave. G2 aren't forcing him out the door. But, you know, during this offseason, Ocelot's been hit with a real conundrum. You know, do you keep Mr. G2 Perkz, the guy who built this team and saw the G2 era begin and thrive? Or do you keep hold of Caps? You know, who would you play in that mid lane? And it's a real problem because it's a lose-lose situation for G2. They lose one of the top 3 players in the West either way. And it's such a bummer that we aren't going to be able to see this G2 roster together again, potentially lifting the Summoners Cup. You know, that is incredibly sad. But personally, I don't know who I would keep on in that situation. What would you guys do? Guy, should we start with you? Caps or Perkz?
Oof. So
if you were Ocelot.
If I was Ocelot, I would be also thinking about my branding. And I think overall Perkz is a stronger brand than Caps as a player. He has a more open personality. Although Caps, is Caps a legend on his own. But I think, as I said, Perkz is Mr. G2. Like, he was playing when the demo organization was called Gamers 2. You know, like, he carried them to the LCS. Like, they barely made it, and it was because of Perkz. And so, like, everything, the G2 is today is because of Perkz. Like, most fans they acquire to the years is because of Perkz. Mm-hmm. At the same time, for the brand itself, would probably be better keeping Perkz until he retired and then became the Bjergsen route and became like a coach or a streamer under the G2 brand. They want to win the Worlds, and if they want to keep one of them, that should be Caps. Like, if they want to keep one mid laner in the mid lane, should be Caps. Caps is overall the superior mid laner in my opinion. He has a deeper champion pool. He's he's a flashier player. Has overall is slightly better mechanics than Perkz, and a lot of people are gonna probably criticize me for saying that. But Caps is overall, I think, as a mid laner at least, is a better player. And if they want to win Worlds, they should keep Caps and bring another rising star new, like bring an Upset or Crown Shot to feel like a lady carry, and they're gonna arrive next year having a super strong roster. Perkz simply wanted to play mid lane again, as you said already, and I think Reddit, social media made a big drama out of this, but I think the reality is very simple. You want to play mid lane, G2 couldn't offer that, so they're finding a way, come agreement for him to leave G2 for another team, or he can play mid. At the same time, bringing a lot of money to Carlos to G2. Friendly, great stuff. G2, I think Cloud9 is eager to pay. I don't think they're gonna pay all the full 5 million. I'm interested to see later. They announced that the exact transaction numbers. But I would just say at least half of it Cloud9 should be paying. And at the same time,
I think there's a lot of rumors that they aren't going to pay more than 3.5. So they're paying a good chunk.
It's respectable. It's respectful. Yeah. At the same time, Perkz, similar to Bjergsen, let's say, for example, he's already played 5 years as a professional player, for 5 years for G2, since he came to the LCS. He had his personal losses here. His father passed away. He said it took a big chunk on his moral. I think Perkz, he started realizing that his career is getting to the later stages. And if there is any crazy team and they willing to throw in bags and bags of money, who can blame him for wanting to go to sunny, beautiful California, live in a huge mansion there in Beverly Hills or whatever they live, and makes loads of money for a couple of years, playing in a weaker league technically, and probably go towards either way. No one can blame me. When the news broke up, I was quite depressed, but I overcame already the 5 stages of grieving, and I read on acceptance. So I just wish Perkz all the best in NA. Go get the money, go have fun. I'm gonna be cheer. I'm a big Perkz fan, but first of all, I'm an EU fan. So sorry, Perkz. if you're facing you awards, I'm cheering against you. But completely understandable why he's going that route.
Absolutely. Jorge, would you say you agree with Gu's assessment?
I definitely agree with for the current version of G2, Caps as a mid laner make more sense. And I do agree that between the two of them, I think these conversations were not only about who is going to play mid lane, but who is more willing to change, who will need, a new air, new region, new team, who might feel more relief with a little bit of change. And I do agree that Perk's having a very rough year, in his personal life. Maybe this year on NA will help him, and maybe he actually will, help NA as a region. He can do amazing things. Imagine Perks carrying, NA to a deep run on Worlds on the or in the international competition, things like that. I mean, I just hope, we wish them best. For them, I think all of, especially the G2 players, they all have, very good personalities. They are, very entertaining. They are, for me, this is the version of esports I do like, which is, we can be fun, we can troll each other, we can meme, but we are, respectful, when the things, and I appreciate a lot, Ocelot's tweets and words during, in the rough time. He's always, he defend his players. I'm sure that if G2 actually is looking for the best for Perks and for them, of course, as an organization, that set a good example of what, the esports teams and organizations and players should do when working together.
Absolutely. You summed it up really well there. At the end of the day, it's all about player satisfaction. That is what ultimately Perks needs to think about. And by leaving, obviously it's going to be a hard decision for him, but he will get that player satisfaction by being able to go back and play mid. G2 need to make sure that they are parting on good terms with him, which it looks like they are. And, if he goes to Cloud9, he'll be going to a very good home. Justin, stats-wise, what do we know about Caps and Perks in mid lane? Obviously, it's been quite a while since we've had an extended run of Perks in mid. But, how do the two measure up?
Yeah, if this question was asked in 2018, which is when we saw Perks last play a full season of mid lane, this would be an entirely different story on who you would select, Caps, Perks. I think clearly Perks is the better one in 2018. Yes, Caps won the back-to-back first team All-Pros, but he only did that because Fnatic ended up winning playoffs, and it's very biased like that, where usually the champion will have their guy as an All-Pro or an MVP. But statistically wise, Perks was the best mid laner in EU back in 2018. And then we saw the half a split this year. I think Caps in 2019 showed that he was the better mid laner. And Perks was an okay AD carry. And then when they switched back this year and they experimented with the Caps AD carry, he did not look comfortable. And Perks looked like he was still a satisfied or consistent mid laner, but he wasn't as elite as he was in 2018. But he arguably goes, or not even arguably, I don't even gonna argue it. He goes to number one statistic wise and elite wise in NA. That is Perks as the best mid laner, and then you can toss in players like PoE, Jensen. And if Bjergsen was still playing, would be in the conversation of like number 2 to battle him. But that's probably the biggest takeaway is we don't get to see Bjergsen versus Perks. Like it's really sad. But it would have been entertaining to see it. But yeah, statistic wise, Caps being picked over Perks was the smarter decision. I think it was mentioned about business-wise, about branding. I think Caps has the bigger social following, but like you said, the G2 following was obviously Perks. But I think he has that always. He is a legacy player, like you said. So him coming back, being traded now or staying, I think is always an option for him. So yeah, I think the move was right for every party. And that's the great thing about these great orgs like C9 and sometimes TSM, G2, Fnatic. They'll try to have the great interest of their players, even when they're leaving, to have them satisfied, and as well as a business side, take care of themselves in the same breath.
Absolutely. But yeah, this still could end up not happening. It's still far from completely confirmed. It's been Jacob Wolf, so it's on the home stretch. But we've seen a lot of deals in football and traditional sports that have fallen through at the 11th hour. Transfers fall through all the time. This could be another one. Personally, I hope that it doesn't. It would be really sad to see Perks leave. Without a doubt, he is one of the greatest players to ever come out of the West. He will be an absolute legend when he retires. But, you just want to see everyone happy, everyone doing well out of the situation. And that's the thing with the way these rumors are going. They've been going for weeks. The information's always been consistent. And there's no smoke without fire, really. I think come Monday evening, we shouldn't be surprised to see Perks donning the black and blue of Cloud9. But yeah, moving on now. Another big move across the pond is Peter Dunn. He has joined Evil Geniuses as the new head coach. He has left Mad Lions. Arguably, before the Perks news came out, and maybe even still with the Perks news coming out, I would say Peter Dunn is one of the biggest names, if not the biggest move in off-season so far. The amount of work this guy does and the influence he brings to teams is so underrated and understated. He along with Mac essentially built the Mad Lions roster that we saw. They scouted them, they built them. And this guy, he lives and breathes the game. I am a Mad Lions fan myself. Obviously very sad about the Worlds run, but overall a very good year from Mad Lions. And it would be unfair to suggest that Peter Dunn wasn't completely at the middle of that. He was integral to this team's success, from scouting them and managing them and scrims and things like that. He is such a massive part of that roster. And I can't help but feel if it was at all possible to stop Peter Dunn from leaving Mad Lions and they chose to let him go anyway, I feel Mad Lions would be making a big mistake here. I think he is absolutely brilliant at what he does. Going to Evil Geniuses, that could well be the start of their push to be a title challenger. Give this guy what he wants. Let him build the team how he wants without interference. He'll get you to Worlds. Without a doubt. So what do you guys think? Do you think this could be the start of a push for EG to be title contenders? And with Peter Dunn being such a big name in terms of bringing through rookie talent and young talent, do we expect a lot of rookies to be coming through for Evil Geniuses next year? Should we start off with Gui?
Okay. First of all, yes, I agree. The guy is exceptional at identifying new talent and training them. And who heard of Karzi, Kaiser, Shadow before the split? Before the year started. He created despite everyone said words. Yeah, let's say it was a sad tournament for the Lions, but nonetheless, they managed to get EU's fourth spot there. Everyone started the year. Remember, everyone power rankings was placing Mad Lions that last place or 9 or 10 place, and the guys just went there, like they beat G2 in strange plates, send them back to the losers bracket, lost, but like finished 3rd place. And in summer they got 4th or 5th place, but either way, they managed to get their spot awards.
Yeah.
My question at Evo Genius is now, first, and I hope they didn't just releasing. I just think EG just made a better offer. NA money talks, and he's from NA, so who can blame him for wanting? I want to go back home. But I think the problem, and that's not only EG's problem, but I think whole of NA, is that the search for immediate results. I think he needs to be given time to get the talents out there, start playing them around, and even the first result is not that good. Don't try to just replace everyone and get some get a golden glue or pull belter, someone has been around for years, and they are reliable, experience, but they're never gonna be the solution. If you want to perform well both domestically, internationally. So give the man some time to work, patience. But at the same time, regarding talent, who he can bring to EG, NA native talent, and that comes back to the question. It's notorious how bad, let's say, the academy, let's say, ecosystem is, with a lot of, let's say, let's say, if people the Zion Sparks on Iron Academy, there's something wrong, in the whole system. I think, I think the system is. I think Riot is working to improve how academy works in NA. I don't know how long that's gonna take. I don't know if it's gonna be enough to have a new influx of domestic talent entering the scene next year. I think they can work very well with the Oceanic talent actually that's coming from Oceania right now. Players who have some potential but never had a chance to perform at a good level because of the overall level of Oceania. But they can be good mechanically. They just never had a chance to prove. Those are I'm not gonna say any names because honestly I'm not that familiar. But someone Peter Dunn is the perfect one to identify any potential talents out there. So if everything depends on how much time, how much patience EG has for that project. If if he's given completely freedom to build a team out of scratch, develop new talent, and then raise them up the ranks and try to then challenge the big names, and we have C9, TL, TSM spending loads of money and building juggernaut rosters for this year. It's probably honestly they're not gonna be able to challenge them at least in the first half of the season. Maybe even that's not gonna be EG's years. Maybe that's something long-term project for next year. But if EG understands and gives him enough resources and time, and freedom to develop the project, I think we can see a very threatening EG eventually. Who knows when though?
Yeah, time will tell. Jorge, what are your thoughts on that? Would you agree with the assessment?
Yeah, I overall agree. And I found very funny that we consider 1 year a long-term project. It is for, and it's crazy. And I mean, I agree with you. It feels like a long-time project, not aiming to win next year. But I do agree. I think NA's problems as a region, as afterwards, everyone was discussing what is the solution, and there is not a single, there is one thing you can fix and everything is going to work. It's a lot of things. But I do agree that bringing people like Peter to NA that will, help to build, a structure, process, how to grow, not only what we are going to see on the games and all the teams, but overall as a back end, behind the scenes, overall with the organizations. I do think that NA should, the talent that you need to import is more on that regard, because you need to build your own, your own talent. You already have very good, good players. Yeah, it's okay. You can bring a big star every now and then, like Perks or something like that. But if you really want to improve the region, because let's say if you bring Perks to NA, for example, Perks will be still, feel like an EU player, because he has his legacy in the EU. So I think Peter Dunn will, maybe not as famous, but he can help to build and to develop NA talent and NA superstars, in the next year. And yeah, I agree. And I think that's a smart move for EG. And yeah, I wish him the best overall.
Absolutely. And Justin, there's obviously going to be quite a bit of an overhaul with Evil Geniuses, with Peter Dunn coming in, especially with his focus on promoting young, promising talent. What do we know about the Evil Geniuses roster going forward into 2021? Will we be seeing many changes?
I think we will. I think we're gonna have like what we call like a band-aid lineup, where you'll see a lot of either veterans or stuff that get brought in early to play like that 1 year contract out, just so he could have time to build the academy and amateur. So Riot is looking to add amateur league under academy. The announcement apparently is coming very soon. And I think Peter will actually be super involved in that. Like you said, his scouting for players, and with Oceania and Academy being rehauled, I think him building talent might be, like Jorge said, behind the scenes. So you might not know of their future team because they'll either be stuck in this amateur league or an academy. But right now it's looking like a veteran squad. Them building around Svenskeren. The rumor is they're bringing in Impact if they can't get Licorice. There are rumors of importing mid like Niski or Nemesis to play as like a mid lane role until they can find like a Bjergsen at like a young age, like someone who can be Peter Dunn's humanoid. Like, because for Mad Lions, Humanoid's a great player, but obviously he was just the veteran on the team. But if he already has Svenskeren and Impact, a player like Niski and Nemesis down the line would be replaced, especially since they take up an import slot. Him looking at mid laners from Oceania or smaller regions that are coming here to play Academy, or even NA talent in itself. We've seen Scouting Grounds go, and there are some mid laners that are very tempting to take a chance on, or even Academy ones that we might not see be called up this year. Guys like a Blaze Olive, Cat Evolved, guys that could be breaking into the scene sooner than later. And with how well Peter is good at bringing in talent, they could sit under a whole bunch of veterans this year. And learn, and then eventually take over in our long-term plan of 1 year.
Absolutely. But yeah, it will be really exciting to see what Peter Dunn can do with Evil Geniuses, because they were always a team that was, like, for the past year or so, they've always been very close to being a top 2 team and were very close to making Worlds, but just sort of fell at the last hurdle. So I think it will be very interesting to see how he manages to get over that last hurdle to make it to Worlds next year, if possible. Our long-term plan of a year might not see that, but yeah, I think all the best to Peter Dunn and to Evil Geniuses, but hands off Humanoid. And now, just quickly to wrap up, we're going to break down a few of the roster moves that are rumored and are more or less confirmed to be happening, but sort of fell by the wayside a bit by the massive news of Perks moving. So first of all, the Astralis, previously Origin, jungler Xerxes, he's rumored to be joining Immortals. He'll be another one making the jump across the pond. Do we think this is a good move for both parties?
Oh, well, it's Immortals, right? What can I say about Immortals?
Nothing.
I don't know, like, yeah.
I think for both teams, it's a good thing. Astralis is looking for like a rebrand overhaul. I think them just gutting the roster and then bringing up a whole bunch of rookies, especially with how much talent there is in EU Masters. Eventually we'll see like a rookie team, probably like the next Mad Lions is probably the dream for them of having talent come up and play for them. And for Xerxes, he gets paid big bucks to come over. And for Immortals, they get a somewhat veteran and decently skillful jungle to join the crop of a weak-ish role in NA, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. I think overall, with as you say, with Astralis specifically, because they are, now we are seeing the transition from Origin to Astralis. And in the announce, Astralis said that they will be implementing, their method, their mentality with the CS:GO team, which is very different from in League of Legends we are used to. The Astralis train like football teams. That's super, long term, workouts. It's different. They have a different mentality, and I think you need to build players with that mentality from very young age, from rookies, because it's very hard for a veteran player to change the way he's basically living his life, because it will change your complete lifestyle adopting this new approach. So I do think makes sense for Cersei to go, because he will be, not, it will be hard for him to change, and it's good for Astralis. And yeah, I mean, Immortals were in a team, impressive last year, so maybe if they can, make it to playoff, depending on the goals they want, maybe top 4, reaching finals. We need to wait and see, but overall, I think it's good for everyone.
Well, we have Guillot to join as a coach as well for Immortals. It's a reliable coach. I think people are like making fun of Cersei and Guillot to join us, so get ready for the 50-minute long Immortal games next year. So like it's kind of infamous that they always play for late, but I think Immortals as well as Org, they need a new image. I think they are like an organization who entered the LCS, taking everything by assault in 17. Like, they went 17-1 in the regular season, and then lost, the infamous Huni top there. But they never, they went towards the year, but, after that, other things started getting a lot of VC money as well, and everything exploded over NA. They never kind of kept it. Then they were rejected for the franchise, and now they bought back their way back in the LCS this year. So a lot of up and downs for that organization. So this year was a down one for them, where they pretty much failed on every single front. It was a mess, everything. I think they need a restart at the end. I think Cersei is a reliable player who also had a very bad year on Origin. I think he had a very nice 2019 for Splice. He went to Worlds. He kept their own against the best players in the world. He played very well in the quarterfinals against SKT. He just have a very bad year. People forget this. People are mocking Immortal. I myself was making a little bit of fun, but to be honest, people forget that Cersei is actually a very good player. I think Origin years was a mess, and that's pretty much only Alphard was the hoping over there. But he has everything he takes, to improve. I think Guillot is a very reliable coach and can bring the best out of Cersei again. And who knows, we might be seeing a team that's actually, waiting for the rest of the spots. But at least in the jungle position, they should be well served.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is we will be talking about Cabashard. He is supposedly leaving Team Vitality, and we've heard that he could be going to Immortals as well. What do we make of this move? Do we think Vitality will struggle without their talismanic player?
No.
Nice and simple. I like it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he was like a tank duty, play weak side, be Mr. Reliable. But for Vitality, they're making the push to be a younger team. They made some moves this season where they gave some players some playing time, like Skeens and Milika, Comp, Leprov. Like they're going in like such a young wave of players that just gonna keep heading into that direction and build a roster. Again, the Mad Lions have set an expectation for EU teams now of that giving rookies or young players or EU master talent is probably the way to go. And we've seen a lot of talks about people being like veterans being pushed to NA to the retirement home, and talent being circled up. And EU has a whole bunch of regions with a whole bunch of talent, and we're gonna see it start here with Vitality and some of the other lower seeded teams.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jorge, agree. Would you agree that this is the right move for Vitality to make? Obviously, it's going to be very strange seeing Cabashard play for a team that isn't Vitality. You know, the guy's been there for, you know, this was his 5th season with them. He is very much a mainstay in that team. And he's arguably been on Vitality for longer than quite a few pros nowadays have been playing professionally. So, yeah, would you guys agree that it's a good move overall?
Yeah, I do agree that Vitality and the, will be. It makes sense for them following the examples of Mad Lions and also Rogue kind of thing. Like you have more young players, and Mad Lions is the best example that you can take a group of rookies if you can uh, group together well, and you can find your own style, and of course if the meta will play to your strengths. I do think it makes sense, and I don't think like even though he was a pillar of Vitality as a because he played for so long, but I also agree that his role can be replaced for a younger talent.
Yeah, and as I said, like he was pretty much the last veteran remaining. Like they are going for a very young team, and he was pretty much the last veteran, like older player remaining. So they're going the Medline route, and it makes sense. Like, and meanwhile for Immortals, reliable player, like should join Certain and Guidotto, and he hopes to bring to bring a more stable year for Immortals. So again, a good move for both parties, I think.
Absolutely. And yeah, so we'll now pass over to Justin with to wrap up a few more of the rumors, pretty rapid, quick style. So what have you got for us, Justin? Hit us with it.
Yeah, we'll start with EU, and then we can talk about if any of them interest people. But right now, the bigger news, so the bigger elite teams, Fnatic's looking at bringing in Yamada Cannon. No surprise that he wanted to coach in EU after he left Sandbox after half a split. There has been links to them bringing in or looking to buy Niski to replace Nemesis, because they've actually been struggling to replace Nemesis, which has been like the biggest rumor since the Worlds debacle. And funny enough, we might see Mithy join Perks and Sven at C9 as an assistant coach. So we'll have the trinity of the old G2 roster on C9 possibly. For G2, they'll most likely 80 carries to be filled by the Perks departure will be probably Upset or Crown Shot. Some G2 hopefuls are actually thinking that Reckless is available. Now that'd be a crazy one if Reckless was to end up on on G2. But it's not likely. We already talked about the Cabochard replacement. Rogue has sold Finn to CLG. While they'll be bringing in Odo Omne from Schalke to be his replacement. And Vander was sold to Misfits after they promoted Trimby, who played for Ego Rogue. And XL, again, the same theme of Ego Rogue is Sheklodad will be now their new mid laner. And after Casual retiring from pro play, they will be bringing in ex Fnatic Rising jungler, who, funny enough, had some coaching from Young Buck. Will be their new jungler. So that'd be Dan. So I wouldn't expect much from this XL roster, but it's interesting. I think Mad was probably the first team that was being rumored is that Orome and Shadow are out, and Armut and Eloya are in. Will be the rumors are Shadow wants to go to LPL, and he does have some interest. We could also see him in the LDL, in the development league there. And some links from NA is that BB is rumored to be brought in from TSM to replace Odo. There are some rumors of BB staying in NA, but that's probably the latest rumor, with Limit now to be their new support.
Blimey. There's certainly a lot going on. The one that probably surprises me the most is Broken Blade leaving TSM. I feel maybe he's got a bit of an unfair deal here, because I feel, at least in summer, he was a good player, and at Worlds, arguably, he was one of the few bright sparks that TSM had at that tournament. I think he definitely hasn't done bad enough to deserve being traded. But yeah, I guess we will see what happens. It would be great if he could play with fellow countryman Gilius.
Exactly. BB's the winner here. He's playing with God Gilius now. Come on, he's the biggest winner of this whole match. Like, he has the honor of playing with God Gilius himself. Like, BB must be ecstatic. And as a proud German myself, like, we can see the German connection forming at Schalke now, with a Broken Blade, with Gilius, and Abedag. I think he's gonna stay as a Schalke. Just bring upset. Let's say a good German support, and Rated still plays. But no,
absolutely, next stop Worlds.
Yes, bring the Summer Cup back to Germany. Let's go. But no, I honestly, it's gonna be interesting to see Broken Blade in the LEC. I think, as I said, TSM is bringing Licorice, and I wouldn't say like he did bad at TSM. It's just, I think, sometimes a little out of his depth. I think, playing the LEC, he's gonna have like a higher level competition. He can potentially develop into a valuable, good talent. Again, depends on many factors as usual. Depends, he wants to put the work to improve. But Schalke might be a very good stop for him. Let's see. And another big win for us all is Kato retired to become probably a caster. So
yeah,
great, good player, but the guy just morphs as a caster. So gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah,
definitely. And Jorge, I saw that when Justin announced the news about the rumors about Reckless, you were quite shocked and surprised at those. Yeah, what do you think of that situation? Do you think how many heads would roll if they let Reckless go to their biggest rival?
That would be crazy, honestly. I think Reckless as a brand is. I don't see a world when Fnatic is letting Reckless, his biggest star, to left the team. He's basically. I think Reckless brand is almost as big as Fnatic for League of Legends and the community and the EU community. So you need to weigh that on consideration. It will definitely have an impact on your, on your profits, on your merchandising, on your fan base, and it will impact also, the way you negotiate with partners and with brands, because having Reckless is huge in terms of branding, social media and everything, just talking about, more of the business side of things. So yeah, I mean, it will create a huge blowout on conversations and stuff, but I honestly, only because of the business side of things, I don't see Fnatic letting Reckless go.
Yeah, I think it would be a massive, massive surprise if it turns out that Reckless ends up going to G2. But yeah, I genuinely think that would break a few minds in EU.
Hey, at least
Yeah,
we'd be the first ones to be breaking it.
we would, yeah. Absolutely.
It'll be huge. It'll be huge. Can start imagining.
Yeah, if we want to move on to NA now, I have a whole bunch for NA.
Yeah, we'll have a quick run through.
Most of these are pretty much confirmed. So Alfari will be joining TL to replace Impact. They're looking to move on from Broxa. He does not look like a great fit for their team. I think they play very different styles. So they're looking at bringing in guys like Santorin or even old Reliable and X Smithy to be their new jungler, who was just released by Immortals. We touched on TSM where they're looking for a Korean support. PoE will be replacing the great Bjergsen. Lost is either going to be kept on Academy and be like a 6-man roster to be like replacing Double Lift if you like halfway through the season. And if they don't do that, then he'll be sold because there is some interest from other NA teams. And Licorice is pretty much close to a done deal to be their new top laner to replace BB. For Immortal side, they brought in Giotto as their new head coach. We already talked about Xerxes already. He'll be brought in as their new jungler. They're the front runners. We talked about Oceania. They're the front runners to bring in Raze and Isles, the duo that we saw so well at Worlds. And they have been linked to be looking at Attila and Cabochard as like veteran pieces, as just like I said, band-aid lineups as like a veteran until they find the young pieces to go there. For EG, we already said they want Impact or Licorice, who they pretty much get the seconds of TSM's option. And the big news there is probably Huni role swapping to either mid or AD carry. Apparently he's pretty much done with playing top lane. It could be wrong, but either way, I think EG replaces him at top. 100 Thieves have come to an agreement to release Cody-san. And they're also probably the heavily linked to buying a lot of talent, like multiple pieces to their starting roster. They've been linked to Closer, FPI, and Johnson. All players under contract, but all players obviously that are expendable because of either bad situations or money issues. And someday is actually very close to getting his green card, which would open up another import slot for them. For C9, everyone knows it by now. Fudge is being promoted over Licorice, and Perks will be their new mid laner. We'll see either Niski or Palafox being sold. More likely Niski than Palafox. And CLG's roster got leaked the other day. Or supposed roster, and it's probably pretty shocking. And that's being nice. It's gonna be Finn, Broxa, Pobelter, Deftly, and Smoothie. Yeah, that's all I can say about that. and
CLG, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
CLG.
CLG. It's more like free LG is what we call it. And
Absolutely.
Like, no.
yeah, and GG and Fly are looking to sell their pieces because of NBA owners losing out on money.
Yeah, there's a lot of big news to break down there. One that I would like to touch on quickly before we have to wrap up is the Roxa going to CLG from Team Liquid, and Santorin coming in to replace him from FlyQuest. I think this could be a very interesting move to watch. You know, both of these are good junglers in their own right, and I would say it's harsh on Broxer to bin him after a year, but evidently, he was brought in to increase that mid jungle synergy with Jensen, and it hasn't panned out how they thought it would. So I feel bringing in Santorin would be a very good replacement, but time will tell, because truthfully, we've not really seen a mid jungle synergy on Team Liquid, anything quite like the days of Xmithy. So yeah, we will have to see. What do you guys think about that?
So Broxer, I feel bad for him, honestly. Like CLG, like it sounds like more like a punishment than anything else. If you put together this roster right now, what they're building, like definitely in Smoothie, like definitely is a very supportive player, like style for AD carry. Like he likes to play like like more utility style AD carries, so where he can let his solo laners like play carries and shine. Like Smoothie, like also that style. Like they're not gonna be like a very aggressive carry bot lane. They play support style to let the solo lanes to shine. And then we have top laner. We see top laner. We have Finn. Do you guys really think Finn's gonna be the one like carrying CLG across? Finn is exactly also a tank support style. Like he did that actually quite well for Rogue. Like playing the support style. Let Hans do the business. Let Larsen, and so on. I think this CLG roster is gonna be extremely disjointed. I think honestly, I have no idea how it's gonna work. Like CLG, like if they can, somehow they can click and they're gonna win. And they're gonna win the LCS. I don't know. Like it's more counter logic than possible with CLG after all. But I think there's a very high possibility everything's gonna boom as usual for CLG. I don't know how much they're gonna be paying for Broxer. Probably a considerable amount, which gives me the yikes. Considering the rest of the roster. It sounds very hard for Broxer for leaving Fnatic as a words as a runner-up in 2018 and having also a good run in 19 to leave to join as a Liquid who had very high ambitions for this year, and after a single year gets trade over to the worst thing in NA. It's harsh. I think that it can show how things change fast in the league ecosystem. 2 years ago, this man was a Worlds finalist, and now he's playing probably in the worst team in North America. Things change fast, and I think Broxer is probably one of the nicest guys in the scene as well. So yeah.
I think for him the transition to NA was very rough. In terms of dealing with the community. He also mentioned that in a couple of interviews, fans, being so quickly to get mad and to say things. And probably, I definitely I would love to see him back in the LEC. That's only a hope, not something that might, only because, as Guy say, I really like Broxat as his personality. I think it's very cool guy, very chill, and yeah, but yeah, it's definitely kind of sad, that you watching a player with so bright potential a few years back, and now this decline, rough year after rough year, but maybe he can but maybe also this could be the storyline of a comeback story for next year or in the future. Or maybe he will, and the team, not only him of course, but the team can manage to figure out maybe all these players that are the midfit or the outcast they group together and they say, okay, let's do this, kind of the Schalke miracle run, like, oh, no one is expecting anything from us, okay, here we are. Let's see, let's hope for the best.
Absolutely. And yeah, just one final point. Justin's got a couple of rumors from LPL and LCK for us. Just run us through those very quickly. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for DRX, it looks like Chovy's on his way out. He's most likely going to the LPL, probably to play with Tarzan, but he does have interest from some LCK teams, obviously, with how great he is. If he does leave, Quad will be just promoted in his place. And they're very interested in buying Khan from FPX, who has not found great synergy with that roster. Genji is looking at a clean house. They just fired their coaching staff. And the rumor is they're pretty much getting rid of everyone except for Ruler and Rascal. Klid is rumored to go to join KT Rolster to play alongside Smeb, which could be very interesting in itself. Afrika are looking to upgrade mid and jungler. The fan rumors have been bringing back Kramer to the LCK, who just played for LGD at Worlds. And Scout is most likely going to be transferred over from EDG to be their new mid laner. Then there's a couple of PCS pieces that are coming most likely to the LCK. Both play represented PSG at Worlds, which would be River, as well as
Tank, was it, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Right. Yeah. So those guys will be coming over, most likely for like the lower seeded squads, or even joining CK squads, which is Challenger Korea. We mentioned before the Bang news of him probably coming back to T1 under their banner in some capacity. I haven't heard of him actually playing this year. But yeah, him going back to TN would be interesting. And Yaharong, who is probably one of the best CK mid laners this year, is getting multiple interests. He's probably one of the greater talents coming out of Korea for mid lane. And quickly for LPL, it looks like E-Stars and Rogue Warriors will be selling their team slots for the next season of the LPL. It looks like J-Team and AHQ, two teams that have been bannered in the PCS, will now be moving into the greater region of the LPL to get their brand a little more exposure. Beishang, Weiwei, and Bubu are all targets for RNG going forward, but XLB has been performing really well in the NEST 2020 tournament. If you guys haven't been watching that, that's probably where you'll see a lot of the new upcoming LDL talent. It's a small little tournament that the LPL is running right now. Tao will be joining EDG, which has already been confirmed. IG as well is looking to change their jungler this season. Beishang is their dream replacement, but Chung, who's their LDL jungler, is really good, and he's going to be coming up from their youth squad most likely, and Ning will be joining OMG. Apparently he's already been scrimming with them, so it's pretty much a done deal. And we could see Kung Yu, who we saw actually replace who is replaced River for the play-ins stage. He's getting a lot of LPL interest for how mechanically he was. So that'd be really great news for them. And Kim, who is the T1 coach this year, will now be the new coach for BLG.
Yeah, a lot of big news to break down there. Just very briefly, I think arguably one of the most interesting bits there is the interest in the PSG roster. You know, this team did fairly well at Worlds. They smashed the play-in stage and looked okay in groups as well, considering the the caliber of teams that they were up against, they, definitely did themselves proud. Kongyu, I think, is an absolutely fantastic player. River and Tank were also very good. So I would be very interested to see how they'll do in the LPL and the LCK. But obviously, we need to remember this is a big, big jump going from the PCS, which is, a wild card region, to
the LCK.
LCK, LPL, leagues with so much prestige around them.
And be
but yeah, what do you
consistent.
guys think? Absolutely. What do you guys think? Do you think they'll sink? Do you think they'll swim?
Good question, because at Worlds it's easy to tell, like, not easy, but they play 1, 2, 3 games well, and people get impressed by that. Like, it's a high probability that you can have a good game or a couple of good games and impress people. But in the league, LPL and LCK, you need to be consistent. You have 40, 50 games that's played, where you need to, if you it's very easy to notice when players underperform. I think individually they are very good players. They performed at awards, but it's a very big leap. From playing the PCS to play in the LCK or in the LPL. Again, it's hard to predict, especially considering how how the meta is shaping. We have a crazy off season, a preseason patch as well, where no one knows where the game really stands. It's very hard to make predictions for next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have definitely the potential to grow into the organizations. I don't know, they are definitely a more budget choice as well. I don't think they'll be as expensive as any player who's currently in the LCK or in the LPL. So that makes also sense for teams that don't want to spend way too much money to invest in players that have some international success already. But again, I don't think they're gonna compete. Let's say they're not gonna be a super high tier in their respective roles, but they can surely be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Jorge, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely agree. I think it's hard to predict, almost impossible. But I do hope. I hope that it works, because I think overall it's good that smaller regions can fit talent to bigger leagues and to bigger regions. And I think that eventually we will see. We haven't discussed that, but I mean, I'm sorry, I need to mention my region, which is Latin America. I dream by the day that Latin American organizations fit NA or other regions. And I think this, if this start happening with PCS and LCK and LPL, it will set a good example. Maybe we can maybe we can take players with these regions, and also will help to develop the smaller regions if they start fitting, and maybe even Riot pour more money onto them, or the organizations start receiving more money from bigger regions, getting better deals with partners and overall grew up. Because I mean, it would be nice in 5 years. With esports you never know, but my hope is maybe in 5 years when we have worlds, it's really worlds. Not only individual regions. EU against LPL or an LCK.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of really good conversation that could be had there. But that will about wrap us up for this episode. So that was certainly a great way to start it. So much conversation and so much big news to unpack as well. We'll definitely be talking about some of these hopefully for weeks to come. So thank you to you all at home for listening. Thank you to Justin for making the time to come on. Hopefully we can have you on again very soon.
Sounds good.
Your insight has been absolutely wonderful, second to none. And of course, thank you to my co-hosts Gui and Jorge for coming along today. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next.
Excited for Monday and excited for
Absolutely.
Monday for the Free Energy Madness. Let's go.
Oh yeah, it's like Christmas Eve, isn't it? So yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks breaking down all of the fallout from the free agency period, as well as any news that may have come out since then, and we'll see where things are at. But until then, we'll see you around, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.